Well, it's time now for a look at some of the day's top business news, and for that I'm joined in the studio by France 24's Cole Stangler. Hi, Cole. You're looking at ongoing turbulence on Wall Street as brokers seek to limit trading in a handful of stocks that saw massive gains, of course, last week.
That's right, actually. Those gains, of course, driven in part by retail investors, some of them discussing their plans on social media. Now, one of the biggest platforms those investors have used says it's keeping its limits in place to rein in trading. That's the app known as Robinhood. It says 8 companies will continue to face restrictions. That's down from 50 stocks last week. Still, investors using Robinhood will be able to buy just one share of GameStop. That's the video game retailer at the heart of the recent tension that looks set to continue well into this week. And many of those investors on social media have likened their trading to a crusade against Wall Street. While they have managed to inflict some damage against hedge funds, as Claire Rush reports, the story is more complicated than that. The financial sector, too, is reaping the rewards.
It's being described by many as akin to the Battle of David and Goliath, an online army of retail investors and day traders taking on Wall Street.
It's the regular Joes versus Wall Street. I like being a part of it, and that I think that sentiment is shared amongst a lot of people.
Successfully triggering a short squeeze by buying GameStop shares en masse, pushing up stock prices and ensnaring the hedge funds that had bet against it by short selling it. The internet movement is having an effect on markets. The stock price of GameStop, a video game chain store, has surged more than 1,000% this year alone, and hedge funds have racked up billions in trading losses. But beneath the surface, some analysts say the social media movement, fueled by small investors, is less righteous than it seems. Market makers and middlemen are also cashing in. One such middleman is Robinhood. The trading app doesn't charge a commission for trades and doesn't require account minimums, luring millions of users with its easy-to-use interface. The app is free for users, but that's because Robinhood makes its money by selling users' data flow to third parties, including hedge funds.
Robinhood portrays themselves as the small investors' tool. However, how Robinhood makes money, 100% of their revenue comes from them selling their data to Wall Street. So actually, the real customer is not the trader, it's not the small investor, it is actually Wall Street.
While many analysts say the battle won't fundamentally change the financial industry, for the small investors taking part, the victory is more symbolic, proof that the general public can shake down the 1%.
Now, this week, many of those retail investors have shifted their attention to silver, and sure enough, the precious metal is seeing some hefty gains today. Silver futures now trading at around $29 an ounce. As you can see there. Now that's up more than 7.5% for the day. Asian markets also in positive territory to kick off the week. Investors reacting to vaccine maker AstraZeneca's move to increase supplies to Europe. The Kospi, as you can see there in Seoul, with some of the biggest gains at more than 2.5%. Stocks in mainland China also up. That's despite a survey showing manufacturing growth fell slightly in the month of January.
Now, Cole, we're heading to Australia, where the government is in the midst of a high-stakes showdown with big tech.
That's right. Proposed legislation would force Google and Facebook to pay news outlets for sharing links. The firms say that's unworkable, while Google has threatened to back out of Australia entirely if that law moves forward. In that case, Prime Minister Scott Morrison says Microsoft search engine Bing could step up to the plate. He says he spoke earlier with CEO Satya Nadella, who apparently would be delighted to fill the gap.
Microsoft's pretty confident. Look, these are big technology companies. And what's important to Australia, I think, is that we set the rules that are right for our people. And having a news environment in this country that is one that is sustainable and is supported commercially, then this is vital to how democracies function.
And finally, Cole, here in France, talks between the government and labour unions are kicking off over remote working.
That's right. This is one of the key messages from the Prime Minister on Friday. Jean Castex said wherever possible, telecommuting should be, quote, reinforced. According to the Labour Ministry, the number of French employees working from home full-time fell some 15% between last November and January. That's the period immediately following the second lockdown. a trend that authorities clearly hope to tackle here. Actually, we'll keep a close eye on how those talks go later in the day, though. Both unions and employers have expressed support for keeping in place a measure that would allow workers to go to the office at least one day a week, so potentially compromise on the table here.
Okay, well, we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Cole Stangler with a look through the day's top business news. Thank you very much.